All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, salutation to the elect 144 First Fruit. I'm the brother Chaashaqahla from the GMS Atlanta Church, coming back at you with another installment of Let's Take a Look Into It. And we're going to take a look into the 6th Syrian War and Antiochus IV Epiphanes, according to the book of Maccabees, okay, in the Apocrypha. All right, the Apocrypha is a pivotal, I wanted to say stepping stone, but yeah, it can be a stepping stone, but it's a pivotal part of the scriptures. This is the book that the self-proclaimed or so-called white man decided to take out, and of the 66 books in the what you call the regular Bible. It has to think like 14 more books, 80 books total. All right, and one of these books is called the First and Second Maccabees, which is a big piece of history that is missing. All right, that the so-called white man wanted to take out and hide because of his atrocities, and taking the Apocrypha out will take the understanding away from the people about Hellenization. All right, but through the apostles and elders of Great Millstone on down, we've been teaching with the Apocrypha to get the full understanding of Gentiles, and also what is Hellenization and who started it. And we understand that the so-called self-proclaimed white man was the one who began that little trend of Hellenization, okay? Starting with Alexander the Greek, which is spoken about in the first chapter and the first verse of the book of Maccabees. But we're going to skip a little further ahead and go to one of the generals that stemmed out of the four generals of Alexander the Great, and that is Antiochus or Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes. All right, and so this is the 6th Syrian War, and what we're going to really look into today is why he went broke when he was fighting the Maccabees, and the 6th Syrian War was a big part of it. When you go into the 3rd chapter of the book of Maccabees, which we are going to go into. All right, so the 6th Syrian War started from 168 BC. Now, the Maccabean revolt, which I got the tab open right here, started in 167 to 160 BC. All right, so about a 7-year span is what they're recording here, okay? All right, it says led by the Maccabees against the Seleucid Empire and the Hellenistic influence on the Jewish life. You wouldn't know what the Hellenistic influence is until you read this. All right, or do your due diligence and research about certain battles and wars and things of that nature and what actually happened. Hellenistic influence would be the progenitor of what you call in the scriptures a Gentile. All right, speaking about the Israelites, ones who don't know they're Israelites, a Greek-speaking Jew. All right, so even some of them had Greek names like Timothy and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So going on, it says the causes of this conflict are obscure. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and flip over to the first book of Maccabees, because it is in the first chapter where you can read about these specific wars. I think you can read about the 6th Syrian War in the first chapter, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was fighting against Ptolemy. All right, let me pull it up for the edification of the camera. All right. It's First Maccabees. As you can see right here, everybody knows who Alexander the Great is. Everybody knows who Philip is. King Philip II of Macedon. All right, and his son was Alexander. I think he had like 2 or 3 sons. Alexander wasn't even the eldest one, but it was not initiated. Well, the Lord wanted him to be. He chose Alexander to do what he did in his campaign. All right, and the other sons weren't adequate enough to carry out that specific job, but Alexander was. It says son of Philip, which is Philip II, the Macedonian. All right, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians. That's Darius the third, the Persians and Medes, and he reigned in his stead. First over Greece. All right, so that's where it all started, but we're going to skip down and go. Let's see. All right. Verse 16, it says, now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, and this is Antiochus the fourth. Let me zoom in right here. All right. This is Antiochus the fourth, Epiphanes, was a Hellenistic Greek of the Seleucid Empire, or Seleucid Empire, from 170 BC until his death in 164 BC. He was a son of King Antiochus III the Great. His original name was Mithridates. He assumed the name Antiochus after he ascended the throne. Notable events during the reign of Antiochus. He goes on, but this, what we're speaking about, is a notable event of his campaign and the Maccabean. They call revolt, war, whatever. Maccabean conflict that he had with the Israelites is another event in his campaign. All right, so verse 16 again. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt. He wanted to rule Egypt, that he might have dominion of two realms. What two realms? The Seleucid Empire, all right, and the Ptolemaic Empire, because we understand that the four generals, going back up here, his Alexander's rulership was split into four. All right, so he wanted to rule over four. He wanted to rule over four sects. All right. That's not what I want to do. Yeah, this is where he parted his kingdom. All right, so he says he wanted to rule over the four. He wanted to rule over two realms, which is the Egyptians, or the Ptolemaic Empire, and the Seleucid Empire. He wanted all that. All right. So we get a precept real quick, because these are Edomites. The Greeks are Edomites. Yes, the Greeks are Edomites. God dang it. All right. So let's go to Habakkuk chapter 2. Salakia. This thing running slow as hell, man. All right. So this is Habakkuk 2 and 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his? The Ptolemaic Empire was not Antiochus's lot to rule. Okay? It says, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And we're going to keep this scripture up, because we're going to look into why he went bankrupt pretty much, or went broke, when he was fighting the Maccabees at one point in the 3rd chapter. Okay? So going back to who he was trying to take over, it says, verse 17, wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy. All right, because you have the Mediterranean there, and also when we read about the 6th Syrian War, he took over Cyprus and Memphis. Cyprus is an island. That's where Barnabas is from. Barnabas the Levite. When you read it in Acts the 4th chapter. So it says, verse 18, he made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt, but Ptolemy was afraid of him, and he fled, and many were wounded to death. Okay, so let's go into it. So this is the cause. This is the 6th Syrian War, 168 BC. The causes of the conflicts are obscure. 170, Euleus and Linnaeus, if I'm pronouncing that right. Let me back out. The two regions of the young king of Egypt, Ptolemy, Philometor, if I'm saying that right, declared war on the Seleucid ruler Antiochus IV Epiphanes. In the same year, Ptolemy's younger sibling, Ptolemy Sychon, and Cleopatra were declared co-rulers in order to bolster the unity of Egypt. All right, so pretty much, bring like a unity and a camaraderie. I'm trying to find a word. You could say a momentum, but that's what they were trying to bring. All right. It says military operations did not begin until 169 when Antiochus quickly gained the upper hand, which we just read about right here in the book of Maccabees. He quickly gained the upper hand when he warred against Ptolemy, the king of Egypt. It says Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded. That's a quick win right there. All right, military let's keep going. I'll reread that. Military operations did not begin until 169 when Antiochus quickly gained the upper hand, seizing the important strategic town of Pelusium. The Egyptians realized their folly in starting the war. Like, damn, what did we get ourselves into? And Euleus and Linnaeus were overthrown and replaced by two new regents, Commonus and Cineas. And envoys were sent to negotiate a peace treaty with Antiochus. You can't do no peace treaty with Esau. You know, and these are both Esau type states. Okay. All right. Antiochus took Ptolemy, who was his nephew, under his guardianship, giving him effective control of Egypt. However, this was unacceptable to the people of Alexandria, who responded by proclaiming Ptolemy Psychon his sole king. Now that was the younger sibling. Okay, they said, man, nah, f that, you know, because if Ptolemy Philometor is all good and cahoots with Antiochus, that means Antiochus technically has rule over us. So no, we're gonna put our own ruler up there. So it says Antiochus besieged Alexandria for this specific act, for them to put Ptolemy Psychon there. But he was unable to cut communications to the city. At the end of 169, he withdrew his army. In his absence, Ptolemy and his brother were reconciled. Antiochus, angered at his loss of control over the king, invaded again. And the Egyptians sent to Rome, asking for help. And the Senate dispatched Gasius Populius Laenas to Alexandria. There you go. Now you're bringing the dragon in, okay? The dragon, I'm saying that according to the book of Revelation. All right. Meanwhile, Antiochus seized Cyprus. There you go. Cyprus and Memphis and Salakia. And was marching on Alexander at Eleusis, if I'm saying that right, on the outskirts of the capital. He met Populius, with whom he began friends. He had been friends during his stay in Rome, but instead of a friendly welcome, Populius offered the king an ultimatum from the Senate. He must evacuate Egypt and Cyprus immediately. And you got to remember, Cyprus is close to Italy. All right. Let's just get a quick indication where Cyprus is. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, let's type in Cyprus. Get a good. Oh, Salakia. It's close to Turkey today. Okay, which is close to Asia Minor, right there. That's where Bithynia and I think Corinth. I may be off. Bithynia, Galatia, Pontus, and all that would be. That's where Cyprus is. He took over that. All right. So let's continue. It says he gave him an ultimatum from the Senate. He must evacuate Egypt and Cyprus immediately. Antiochus begged to have time to consider, but Populius drew a circle around him in the sand with his cane, and this may be like, far-fetched, but whatever. His cane, and told him to decide before he stepped outside it, meaning like, you better decide before, if I step outside this, you're going to catch these hands of the Roman Empire. You know, you're going to catch all of it. Okay? So it says, Antiochus chose to obey the Roman ultimatum. The day of Eleusis ended the Sixth Syrian War and Antiochus' hopes of conquering Egyptian territory. So he really didn't fully gain control of the Egyptian territory. All right. Now the Maccabean revolt, I'm not going to really read this because we got the truth in the matter right here. And if you haven't read Maccabees, I highly suggest you read it. All right. But this was, between Antiochus and Mattathias and Judas and Simon and so on and so forth, the Maccabean family, and they had a war. Now we're going to go into the third chapter. All right. Let's see. All right. We're going to go start at verse 25. All right, verse 25. So when you read up in chapter 3, it shows that Apollonius went to go fight against the Maccabees and got his ass kicked, and they took Apollonius' sword. All right, so hearing that, Antiochus got pissed off. All right, and very quite mad. Matter of fact, I'm gonna start up at verse 20 just to get the whole thing. It says out 19. It says verse 19, for the victory of battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, but the strength cometh from heaven. This is Judas speaking to the men who were going to fight because they saw that their army was kind of small compared to the Greeks. It says verse 20, when they came against us in much pride and iniquity to destroy us and our wives and children and to spoil us, but we fight for our lives and our laws. Verse 22, wherefore the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face, and as for you, be ye not afraid of them. It says verse 23, now as soon as he had left off speaking, he leapt suddenly upon them, and so Siron and his hosts were overthrown before him. So they beat the shit out of them too. That's two pivotal battles that they beat while Antiochus is over here trying to debate with the Romans and take over Cyprus and Memphis and Alexandria and Egypt, the Ptolemaic Empire. So you got to remember, he's taking two big hits because war costs money. War costs money. He's taking two big hits. He's losing the Sixth Syrian War. All right, because now the Romans are deciding to step their foot in there and be like, yo, you're not the one who's going to go ahead and rule all these things. Because later on, who ended up getting Carthage, which is northern Africa, which is the Ptolemaic Empire? Who? The Romans. All right, they took that from Hannibal when you go into the First and Second Punic Wars. Okay, it wasn't Antiochus's lot to rule northern Africa. It wasn't. It was the Romans' lot. That's why the Romans stepped in right here and told that, he drew that circle. It's like, yo, nigga, nah, bruh. You know what I'm saying? So he says, and so Siron and his hosts were overthrown before him, and they pursued them from the going down to Bethron unto the plain, where were slain about 800 men of them, and they and the residue fled into the land of the Philistines. Then began the fear of Judas and his brethren, and an exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations round about them. Now they hearing about what they doing, man. They going in, man. I ain't trying to mess with them, man. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much what's going on. It says, and so much as his fame came unto the king, what king? Antiochus, the fourth Epiphanes, and all the nations talked of the battles of Judas. And now when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation. He was pissed off. Wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army. He's like, no, he put all the marbles on it. Because he's probably pissed that he couldn't get the Egyptians. He couldn't get the Ptolemaic Empire. Because the Romans stepped foot in that. He ain't got the firepower, you could say, or the money to start a war with the Romans. And if he got in a war with the Romans, he would lose the Seleucid Empire. Because if he loses that, the Romans is going to take that over, which they did anyway. All right. So it says, verse 28, he opened also his treasure and gave his soldiers pay for a year. It's like, look, here, this is the pay for the whole year, man. I'm not going to pay y'all bit by bit for each little battle. No, this is for everything. This is for the whole year. Take it. All right. Commanding them to be ready whensoever he should need them. All right. It says, nevertheless, he saw that the money of his treasures failed. He was going broke because he stretched his army too thin. Now let's go back to Habakkuk 2:6. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. Now, woe meaning destruction, which we should all know. It says, to him that increaseth that which is not his. Now, I'm going to apply this to Antiochus. He's trying to increase and wants to rule over two realms, which we read about in 1 Maccabees 1. Okay? He wants to have dominion over two realms, the Ptolemaic Empire and the Seleucid Empire. But it ain't working like that. Now it's woe unto you. Now you got Judas and the Maccabees kicking your ass on another front in Jerusalem in the Israel area. All right? Now you kind of stuck because now you can't rule over that realm. And you spent so much time and money and effort into taking that over. Now you can't do that. You pretty much wasted that money because now the Romans are stepped foot and you can't fight against the Romans because they're too powerful. And you have exhausted a lot of your resources. Now, on another hand, you're in another theater of war against the Maccabees who are kicking your ass too, ruining your money. Now you're running out of money. Now you got to go deep into the Seleucid Empire and go get money. All right. It says, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Antiochus put himself in debt, man. He was running out of money. He was losing it. He was laying himself with thick clay because he wants to fight. And he was too greedy and he wants to fight on two theaters thinking he can win it. All right. So it says that the money of his treasures failed and that the tributes to the country were small, meaning like the other countries didn't have a lot to give because you done exhausted them and totally depleted them of their resources in the first place, which you can see happening right now to America. All right. Because of the dissension and plague which he had brought upon the land. Why is there dissension and plague that he brought upon the land? Because he's going against the children of Israel and the Lord is plaguing his ass. This is another reason why his money failed. All right. It says, in taking away the laws which he had been of old time, he feared that he should not be able to bear the charges any longer, nor have such gifts to give so liberally as he did before, for he had abounded above the kings that were before him. He was one of the richest Seleucid Empire kings, man. Okay, it's right there. The proof is in the pudding. Okay, but he was running out of money because he wanted to fight on two fronts. This is the main reason why the Greeks or the Seleucid Empire was running out of money, quote unquote, going bankrupt. All right, our economy was crashing because of the Maccabean revolt, because of the Israelites, and he was trying to fight in two theaters of war. This is the main reason why, you know. So I just wanted to touch base on that. You could look up the Maccabean revolt. You could look up the 6th Syrian war. There's the 5th. There's the 4th. There's the 3rd, so on and so forth. You could read all these. These are some good pivotal information to put the pieces of the puzzle together to understand the scriptures better. But you really want to look into the 6th Syrian war, all right? Because that was going on kind of during the time of the Maccabees. All right? So, you know, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Akakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, salutation to the elect 144 first fruit. Again, this is Brother Chaashaqahla from the GMS Atlanta Church here in Georgia. Until next time, like always, Shalom.